Matt, you're back.
What's up, Rick? Welcome. Happy to be back.
Likewise.
I say this all the time, but yeah.
Well, I haven't had you on lately. I've been trying some new guests out to see if I might want to go in a different direction.
Actually, all have been really good.
Yeah, they haven't been bad. Yeah. Jay was good with anti-aging. Had Cody on last week. That comes out, I guess, by the time this comes out, it'll be out for a week or so.
Which he was a cool story, right?
Yeah, he was an intern here who turned into a full-on gym owner. And he talked about his experiences through Alloy, many of which I didn't know. And we have a special guest in addition to you today, which is my dog, who's wandering around.
Whining around.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be able to hear.
No, I didn't place him anyway. I just kind of let him walk around. Maybe I should place him. Anyway.
Control your dog, man.
Too bad you guys, you know how I feel about bad behaving dogs.
He's pretty good. He did run out the front door and didn't go anywhere. So
that's true. Someone's like, your dog's out in the parking lot, and I called him and he came running in. So
yeah, my dogs have been gone. Well, not really. Half of them can't even walk. So.
Their little chariots onto their back legs just zipping through the parking lot. Little pugs rolling down the street. Little posse, little posse of jacked up pugs.
Pretty much. It's like
mess some people up. There's a
dog
in my
nursing home.
There's a dog in my neighborhood who's got one of those. Like his
got the wheelchair?
Yeah, he's got the little chariot wheelchair in the back. He is the nastiest little dog ever. Can't even get close to him. Yeah, I think he likes making up for his,
Well, we have one that can't walk, and we don't have a chariot. But literally any dog that gets near him, he tries to bite him.
Right. That's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. Right?
You can't do anything, but you're going to try to bite him.
Right? My mouth still works, bitch. Yeah. Get close enough and find out.
Pretty much.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about something today.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Anything. You know what? It's actually a pretty relevant topic. And it's something that I think everyone will understand why it's relevant once we bring it up. And it's really about what we think might be the most valuable currency that we have right now.
Bitcoin?
No.
Oh.
No. What's the other one? What's a
Dogecoin?
Doge.
There's like a million. I don't know.
Dogecoin. Yeah, I know. There's lots of coins, but
not currency?
Those. Not those. But one that's been around a long time and is a bit harder to make money on. And certainly, yeah, exactly.
Where are we going?
I know. Honestly, it's called trust.
Oh.
And so when you look at the current environment, and this makes sense, like there's no trust in any establishment right now, right? Whether it be government, non-government, business, anything like that, any establishment, there's very little trust right now.
Outside the circle of trust.
You're outside the circle now.
I mean, you knew I was going to have to say that.
This is my circle, okay? You're not in it. You're on the outside of it. But there's an interesting report, and actually I'll share it with the team. I haven't even thought about doing that yet, but it's really cool. It's one of those ones that's just fun to read. And it's a worldwide study by a company. It's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. And so each year they do massive statistics on general trust in different categories.
Okay.
Well, interestingly, maybe not. I mean, when you look at kind of media, right? Like media, government, non-government, and private business are kind of the things that we look at, right? Which one of those things has both trust and competency? That's one of their basic graphs that I find interesting. So, imagine you've got competency baseline here. You've got, right, ethical baseline here. And there's not one of those four entities, which encompasses a lot of categories, that makes it into both ethical and competent.
Really?
There's only one that makes it into competent, and that is business. So it barely makes it over the line. So in general, the general public thinks that business is competent, but not ethical, right? Which, I mean, think about it. It makes sense, right? The ethics of data selling or privacy or all the conversations that are going about that. I mean, and the media hysteria around it just tanks, trust. The only one that made it into ethical but not competent was think about the Red Cross. That would be like a non-government organization, right? That sometimes works along with the government.
Ethical but non-competent.
Not competent at all, but ethical. And they typically work alongside the government. And if you look at both media and government, not ethical, not competent. Either one. So no one made it into the golden triangle, right? Or golden square of all four. And so if you look at that, and that's a worldwide study, interestingly enough.
How do you go to just put a survey out? What?
Yeah, I mean, it's millions of people in a survey. And so, here's what's interesting and not interesting. The only country that had high level of trust and competency in their government Can you guess who that is?
Sweden.
No, China.
Really? Did they?
That's
who
a
filled
nod,
out that survey?
right? Except for the
They still don't have any COVID cases.
Right, exactly. I was about to say that's a testament to consumer confidence when controlled by communism. So
I thought I had a good guess.
yeah,
Was
I thought
Sweden second?
no, it was, but I thought it was hilarious. Like number 1, China. Number 2, North Korea. No, they weren't even in there, obviously. But I thought China was pretty funny. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, there's not a message that gets through that's not controlled by those guys. So, anyway, they do it, culturally, by country. I mean, they break it all down. But in general, those were the 4 categories, and none of them ticked all the boxes. And forget about China. All bets are off since they control that media message. So,
right.
You could argue that right now in business, you might be seen as competent, but are you trustworthy? And if you are not, then you need to try to establish that as best as possible. And if you do, that's a true currency in this day and age. I mean, very, very valuable. So the question is then, how do you, as a business, how do you build, trust? How do you get folks to trust that you are, doing the right thing, right? And that you, do good. And I think it goes back to a lot of the things that are just super basic that I don't know that we fully understand in all of our messaging. So we could start out with things like full transparency, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you are a business that shows your processes to your end users, you discuss not only the bright, shiny things, but also the warts in your business, right? Or things that are going on where people feel like they have a really good grasp of your company, what you're all about, what the processes are, what's next, right? Like just full transparency to the furthest extent that you can is super valuable. That even goes back to, like, if you're going to look at the lens of the, Alloy personal training or the personal training business, right? Even your marketing hooks. I could argue that if you're running a 6-week bait and switch hook, right? Yeah. That would drive lower inherent trust.
Sure.
Right? Than something that's just very straightforward. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that could be, listen, we can argue which ones are better. That's not the topic for this conversation, but come try a free workout is as much as that's not a compelling offer, it's pretty trustworthy. Like, come try it. If you like it, great. It's kind of like what we do. Come in, we'll give you half off your first month. That's it.
Yeah.
Done. Easy. But there's no tricks. There's no high sales acumen or bait and switch or tapping into someone's emotions, right? And listen, that doesn't mean that sales scripts and systems, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but that those things aren't important. But if they're done to the level of trickery, right? And like, I'm pulling a rabbit out of my hat or a large pole out of my butt, which could also be a trick. Then,
I don't want to see it.
Right, you're like, what? Wait, hold on. What? Wait, what? That would not be trustworthy. I'm just telling you, that's not a trustworthy move.
Well, and we're already say behind the 8 ball in a gym setting, because gyms are probably not very trustworthy to begin with, right?
Well, that comes
perception of population.
Well, it goes back to contracts,
yeah.
Right? Which we don't use that word. We use agreements, but I think through the consumer's lens, they would certainly call it as a dirty word, a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Low usage. I want to stop. You can't because you're in a contract. That's historically speaking. Shoot, when I started in the industry, we had contracts that were 24 and 36 months. Not here, but at the gyms that I was working at as a trainer. Wow. And I tell you, there were sales folks there that could sell. I'll bet you they were some of the most skilled salespeople I've ever met, because they were trying to talk somebody who didn't even want to exercise into a 3-year commitment, and to the lengths that they would go to get people to sign up. Disgusting things like, I left this is back when I left my checkbook in the car, right? And they're like, well, I'll come out there with you, right? Or like, I've got my baby with me. Well, let me hold your baby while you run out to the car. I'm like, my baby.
Did you do these things? Or?
No, I wasn't in sales. I was the first ever personal trainer at these gyms. I would come in and say like, hey, do you mind if I do? Well, look, imagine coming into a gym and saying, hey, I want to be a personal trainer. Do you have any of that here? Do you mind? And they're like, I don't even know what that is. One of the clubs had an exercise physiologist who would do like the Harvard step test and blood pressure and things like that. But I would come in and be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do personal training. And I think I've told you the story before. I just put the sign-up sheet up on the workout cards and said, hey, free 30-minute session with me.
Picture of you.
Just a picture of me with my shirt off.
Straight flexing.
Yeah, I had on muscle pants.
Fanny pack. Oh, yeah.
No shirt. fluffy socks and high top shoes.
Trust that guy.
That was full trust. You saw everything I had right there. I was bearing all. And people were like, I know this guy. This guy's me. Those frosted tips and that mullet, that speaks to me. This is my people. Yeah. And I just crushed. But no, we probably dug our own hole, because back then people would just do these disgusting things to sell memberships, follow people back to their...
Force them to do that. I mean, hell, whoever came up with 36-month agreements, who's that guy?
The default on those was so high, it was unbelievable, which is not surprising, right? It's like, really? Go figure, you know? But yeah, so that's probably a little bit, at least from the consumers that have been around long enough to remember those days, that's where we lose a little trust. Now, so full transparency in your messaging, in your marketing, like just be real, right? Sure. Also in your content, like I know you've been putting out content with Steven on like, hey, here's a couple things you can do at your desk. The more authentic that you are in that content, the more it's going to speak to the end users about who you are and what you do.
Sure.
And I think too, showing both sides of everything, like, okay, it's not perfect. That's why content created for advertising, certainly for brick and mortars, is better when it's grainy and it seems real, right? Because it's more trustworthy, because it's more believable. So if you've got some high production shot put together and you're trying to get Susie Q, who lives down the street, to come to your gym, it's probably not going to work that well. But if you show a picture or a video of someone who reminds her of her, and it's not perfect and it looks like it was just shot, spur of the moment, off the cuff, here's a cool client, check this out, and you can do that really moves the needle. Again, it goes back to trust, right? So marketing message, your content overall, being consistent with your content. And then I think taking it a step further, I had Jeff Presley from Causley on the podcast about 3 or 4 episodes ago, and we talked about, businesses that do good, meaning if you are doing good and you can make it transparent about the good that you're doing, that can really help move the needle for your business. I mean, it can certainly be a tiebreaker. Like if you, in your vertical that you own in your market, there's going to be direct competitors. And if it comes down to this business is for profit only, right? And meaning that, that's all that they're about. And that's easy to see that, right? Versus a business that clearly does good, whether it's in the community or the world. Like for us, we give, a percentage of our income to charity as a business structure. Well, that feels good. That's trustworthy, right? And for us, being a personal training brand and the fact that we have these intimate relationships with people, we have to be able to communicate that well. And we have to keep our promises. Part of it is what happens when someone shows up, because if there's a disconnect, we've talked about this, like in communication, this is like the bane of our existence, right? You set a high level of expectations and then you don't meet those expectations, you've lost the trust, right? If you take the relationship from relational to transactional, you lose a little bit of trust. So trust is just a real currency in this day and age. And I would encourage anyone, it's a free report. You can Google it, the Edelman Trust Barometer, and just check it out. There's one for each year. You can track it over the last few years. There's a really cool PDF you can download on there. It's a lot of it's high level, overreaching data, but it doesn't take long digging through that info to start to discover that, wow, if we could build a brand that was trustworthy, right, that would be a real advantage for us.
It'd be interesting to go back, 20 years and see what the difference is.
They go back pretty far. I can't remember exactly how many years back, but you can go back at least 10 years.
Trust is a lot worse now. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, think about no one trusts anything right now. No one trusts science. No one trusts data. I mean, we were questioning whether math is even relevant, right? I mean, honestly, so it's like, it may be rightly so. And it's the fault of these outlets. If you think about, mask wearing or just something that's so inflammatorily outrageous, there's so many mixed messages. Of course it's going to be. And then it gets politicized. So the government does that to what they think is their advantage, to pander to their constituency. Then it causes more tribalism, more division. Now, not only do you not trust the government most of the time, you don't trust your neighbor, right? And okay, so the CDC, hashtag I trust science. And then they come out and say, don't wear masks. And everyone's like, whoa there, Mr. Speedy Pants. I don't trust that either. I'm like, wait a minute. We don't trust anything right now. And maybe rightly so, because there's a lot of mixed messaging and the media does a lot to, when you're advertising attention and clicks, right? Inflammatory headlines can be damaging. But if that's how you pay bills, they're going to be there, right? And so when you look at all the just inflammatory headlines and stuff that are thrown out there, Of course there's no trust, because if you read the article, you're like, well, what are you talking about? It's not even, it doesn't even match the headline at all.
No.
So it's just one of those interesting dynamics right now. And I think it's something that we should pay attention to. And I know it's lofty and it's not like, here's the 3 things you need to do to grow your gym. But I will tell you right now that just look at all of your materials, all of your messaging, how you induct a new client. Do you back up on that? Do you back that promise up when people come in? If you can do all those things and earn trust, it'll feel like that one, safe haven for somebody, right?
Sure.
In a world where trust is at an all-time low, whether it's your government, the business you deal with, your friggin' neighbor, because you don't know where they stand. It's nuts. So
Sound like there's something behind that, huh? Got a bad neighbor around you?
I have good neighbors.
You do have good neighbors. You got them all in the gym. It's great.
I know.
Keep going.
No, I got the best neighborhood in the world, bro. I really do. And it's really funny. We just had a new lady move in the other night as an example. And the guy that lives down at the end of the cul-de-sac, he's like the mayor of the neighborhood. His name's Greg. He's a cool dude. He comes out with 2 bottles of champagne while they're moving in, and they all just stop moving, and the whole neighborhood comes out and does a toast to these new people. And she's like, this is the best neighborhood ever.
That's cool. Well, that's just, same kind of thing we try to do in the gym, right?
Yeah.
Build community, make people feel welcome, let their guard down. That's it.
Yep. And again,
trust.
It really is about trust. And so I hope you guys can look at everything that you're doing, saying, and what your overall image is of your company, and try to protect that at all costs. It kind of goes back to when we talked about the 3 things that Jim Collins addressed during COVID. And the second one of those 2 was 25 squadrons, which was Churchill's question to his commanders is, how many squadrons do we need to hold back to protect the island? When we took that message and we put that lens over our business, what are the things we need to protect? And obviously it's revenue. Sometimes it's personnel, like I can't lose these people, right? Because everybody's tightening their purse strings a bit. But also it was like brand equity, we can't lose that. We can't lose that trust. So let's not do something. And it was a tough year to maintain that. But I think, we did a pretty good job, I would say.
Yep.
We just tried to be transparent. We had people, just as every business did, saying, hey, you're making the wrong decision here. You're staying open too late. You're opening too early. And we tried to address all of those with like, look, we don't really know. We're trying to do the best we can, right? We're sorry if you don't agree, but like, this is why we're doing it, and just trying to be fully transparent. And listen, it's not always popular, but the idea is not to be popular. It's to be trustworthy.
Sure.
And that means telling the truth, and telling the truth isn't always the most popular thing, but it's still the right thing to do. So I hope that helps everyone. Trust is the new currency, certainly in today's environment. If you can build it and keep it, you're cooking with oil. Make sense?
Awesome.
All right, brother. See ya.